Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are tackling a big one, that feeling of being totally stuck in your creative work. We're going to break down a really practical guide to turn that paralysis into actual progress.
So let's just jump right in with a question, and I bet we've all been here. Have you ever felt completely paralyzed by someone else's success? You know the feeling, right? You're scrolling online, you see this amazing piece of work, and that spark you had, poof, it's just gone.
Yeah, it's this super specific kind of creative freeze. You see their perfect post, that flawless photo, and all of a sudden, that great idea you had feels, well, naive, kind of silly even. The story you were so pumped about just yesterday now seems clumsy. That's the exact feeling we're digging into.
All right, so here's the plan. We're going to cover the comparison trap, look at the backstage versus their performance, get into a practical guide, talk about the power of making bad stuff, falling in love with the process, and finally, what the real victory looks like. Let's do it.
Okay, first up, the comparison trap. Let's really define what this is because it's way more than just feeling a little down about your work.
See, the real kicker is this. This habit of comparing yourself, it doesn't just mess with your mood. It literally blocks the one thing that could pull you out of the slump, which is actually creating something. It's a total progress killer. So why does this comparison feel so awful? Well, what's really interesting is when you understand that the whole game is rigged against you from the very beginning.
And this just lays it out so perfectly. Look at the two realities. On your side, you've got the backstage. It's raw, it's uncertain. You're living with the dozens of failed versions, the hours you spend totally stuck, that feeling of your confidence just tanking. But what are you comparing that to? Their performance, the refined outcome, the final product, the clean image. It's just not a fair fight, is it?
It was a photographer who put it perfectly. You're comparing your backstage to someone else's performance. And that just nails it. Your backstage is messy, it's full of mistakes, it's where you're testing things out. But all you see from them is the polished final act. We always forget that every single creator out there, they have a backstage too. We just don't get to see it.
Okay, enough about the problem. Let's get into the practical stuff, the how. Because the trick here isn't to just try not to compare. It's about replacing that whole habit with something much more powerful, the simple practice of making.
So we're not going to fight the thought head on. Instead, we're going to redirect our energy with 3 really simple, actionable steps. The idea here is to build up so much of your own creative momentum that there's just no room left for comparison to sneak in.
Step 1. Put on creative blinders. I love this phrase. Think of your creative space like a garden. And comparison, it's like this invasive weed that just chokes everything out. So this isn't about isolating yourself forever. It's just a temporary strategic pause. Maybe mute or follow a few accounts that make you feel intimidated. It's not about being jealous. It's just about protecting your own little plot of land so your own ideas have a chance to actually grow.
All right, moving on to step 2. Now, this one is going to sound a little weird, maybe even counterintuitive, but trust me, it is an absolute game changer.
And here it is. Give yourself permission to be imperfect. Actually, go one step further. Deliberately try to make something bad. Seriously, for the next 15 minutes, just make the worst possible version of whatever you're working on. Write a truly awful poem. Draw a ridiculously lopsided face. Go for it.
So why on earth does this work? Well, think about it. That inner critic, that little voice in your head obsessed with comparison, it only gets loud when you're trying to impress someone. When you take away the pressure to be good, that voice has nothing to say. It just goes quiet. The point isn't to make something high quality. The point is to turn creating back into a simple action, not a high-stakes test. It just frees you up to start.
Okay, so we've got some great tactics. But to make this all stick, there's a deeper mindset shift we need to talk about. It's all about learning to fall in love with the process.
Just look at these two mindsets. If you're totally outcome-focused, every little step feels like a huge risk. It's exhausting, and you're constantly competing with everyone. But if you can shift to being process-focused, you start to find a rhythm in the work itself. Suddenly, comparison just doesn't have the same bite. You're not competing anymore. You're just doing the work.
And that's why step 3, just showing up consistently, is so powerful. The goal isn't to churn out a masterpiece every single day. No way. It's about training your mind to see creating as, well, ordinary, just a routine thing you do. And you know what? When making stuff becomes normal, comparing yourself to others starts to feel really, really boring.
So, with all that in mind, let's talk about the real victory here. Let's completely redefine what the goal is, because it was never about being amazing right out of the gate.
Okay, let's get real for a second. Here are some truths to remember. Most of what you create at first, it's probably not going to be that good, and that's okay. Every single artist you admired has a drawer or a hard drive full of weak sketches and bad ideas. The secret is that creating doesn't require confidence to start. It only requires persistence. This is the whole point, right here. The people you admire aren't the ones who somehow avoided making bad work. That's impossible. They're the ones who just kept going, despite it. They made the bad stuff, and then they made the next thing.
Look, the goal isn't excellence, it's persistence. That little voice of comparison, it might never go away completely, but you can learn to work while it's still whispering. The real win is getting to a place where the act of making takes up more space in your life than the act of measuring. So I'll leave you with this. What will you create today, even while that voice is still talking?